Welcome to the Canadian Homeschooler Podcast, where we have real conversations about all things homeschooling from a Canadian perspective. We're your hosts, Lisa Marie and Elena, and in this episode, we're talking about our homeschooling journeys and introducing you to this brand new podcast. So grab your favorite drink and come join us on the couch. All right, well, I'm super excited to be here and having an opportunity to do a podcast and just chat with you, and glad you could join me.
Thank you.
So what I thought we would do in this introductory podcast kind of episode is talk about us and our homeschool stories and about the Canadian homeschooler and about kind of what we're hoping that this podcast will be as we move forward. All right. So hi, everybody. My name is Lisa Marie Fletcher. I am the voice behind the website, The Canadian Homeschooler. And I've been homeschooling for, I think it's been 17 years. And that feels like a million years in homeschool life. But anyways, so I think it's been 17 years. And I have 5 kids. Do you want to do a little brief intro and then we can talk about how we started?
Sure. Okay. So my name's Elena and I've been homeschooling for 14 years. I'm just homeschooling my youngest. My other kids have moved on to other things. I have 4 kids. I don't remember if I said that or not. I guess I started working for Lisa Marie in 2020. Now she's asked me to help with the podcast. So here I am.
Awesome. And I'm super glad to have you joining me here. So how did I start homeschooling was when my oldest, who's now 20 or just about to be 20, which is wild because I don't feel that old. Wasn't I just 20 last week? Anyways, when he was school age, so here where I am in Ontario, that's where I'm from. I'm in Ontario. We have JK, and JK's age 3, 4, somewhere in there. So that's why I wasn't sure if it was 16 or 17 years that we've been homeschooling. But when he was JK grade, I got ready and I signed us up for JK at our local school. And I was really anxious about it because he was a very shy child. He was very introverted and very quiet and wasn't really great with large crowds. So I wasn't sure how school was going to go. So I signed him up anyways because, that's what you do when you're a mom with a first kid. And I went to the parent night where the school invites all the parents in for the new kindergarten kids and shows you around the school and all the classrooms. And they talk about how the classroom runs and what to expect for the year. And I sat there in that room and looked around at all the parents and looked around at all the amazing artwork on the wall of the chalkboards and the little cubbies. And I'm like, okay, it's really cute and everything, but yeah, I don't think this is going to work. And they gave us a little package of paperwork to take home, including some activities that we could do at home with our kids, such as, I remember there being one page that had, those papers that have the dotted lines and you're supposed to get your little guy to cut or little person to cut along the dotted lines. Yeah. So I remember taking it home and thinking, I can do this. So my background before I became a mom was early childhood education. I finished a diploma in that at school and I was a nanny for many, many years. So I realized I could probably handle kindergarten. So after much discussion and conversation, and then realizing that we'd missed an important part of the application or something to that extent, I just decided to keep him home. So that was my beginning to the homeschool journey. And we just did life learning adventures at home. And then I had a whole bunch more kids and it didn't really make sense to send anybody to school when we had already kind of ingrained it into our lifestyle. So here we are, 17 or 16 years later, whatever number it is. And I've been homeschooling ever since. What about you?
So I'd heard about homeschooling before I even had kids. My husband was homeschooled for a small part of his growing up years. And I had some relatives on his side that had homeschooled, and some of them are even still homeschooling. And I had a friend in high school that was homeschooled at the time. I didn't really understand what that meant, but it was interesting to me. And then when I started having kids, I started thinking about homeschooling and what that would look like, but I didn't really understand a lot about it, I guess. Then when my first child was ready to go to school, all the other moms were talking about signing up for JK, and where I live in Ontario as well, homeschool or not homeschool, public school starts at JK full days. I'm pretty sure it's that way across the whole province now, but back then it wasn't. And it was just in certain areas. Other places had like half days. I had always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I grew up with a stay-at-home mom, but I went to school. So that was kind of like already in my plan. So homeschooling seemed like just, I'll guess, a progression of that, another step of that. But it kind of scared me because I didn't really know exactly what I was doing. I remember really looking for, well, how do I even do this? Somebody handed me a Learning House catalog that I knew they homeschooled. So I started looking at that. It seemed kind of overwhelming, but I thought, well, it's just JK. Like, how hard can that be? So also my first child, it just seemed so young to send her off. She was already 4 by that point in the year, but 4 gone from me all day just seemed like a lot. She was also very advanced. She had learned to read on her own very early. And so I just thought, you know what? Let's just give this a try, see what it's like. Moving forward, I really enjoyed it. I got connected with other homeschoolers. I liked that we could teach about our own family values. I liked that I got to spend more time with her instead of having her gone all day. I liked that we could teach a lot of our things that I knew about nature and the outdoors. That's very important to me. I liked that it was one-on-one. And I liked that we could move at our own pace. So it didn't really matter if she was more advanced in one area or slower at another area. It just was her pace. So then I added other kids to the mix. Some of them had struggles. One of them has learning disabilities, just a variety of struggles. Each of my kids are very unique, as kids are. And it really helped having that extra time with them and the one-on-one attention. And I really got connected with my local homeschooling group, and it just seemed to be working for us. So that's kind of where we went for that and how we got started.
That's totally true. All the things that you mentioned are valid reasons for homeschooling and why we continued homeschooling as well. Because I also have kids with learning challenges and various needs, and being able to go at their speed and find resources that work with how they learn was exactly why I appreciated homeschooling all the way through with all of my kids. So yeah,
cool, for sure.
Yeah. So back when I started homeschooling, I was lucky because I had a couple of sister-in-laws that were homeschooling already, and both of them were using an American-based box curriculum. So I followed their lead, because when you're first homeschooling, you kind of like, I don't know what to do. So you just copy whatever anybody else is doing, or whatever the crowd around you tells you, if you have a crowd. So I decided that I would start just like they did, and I bought the box set curriculum, which wasn't a bad program. Like it's a good program, but I discovered pretty quickly that it wasn't really for us. Like it was very heavy and very American. I mean, there's only so many American flags you can have your 4-year-old color before you think maybe this isn't the right fit for my family.
For sure.
So that actually sent me thinking about Canadian resources. There's got to be something out there. Like that was my thought process. And if I'm looking for it, wouldn't other people who are in Canada possibly be looking for Canadian resources as well? And that started me on a journey to share resources with other homeschoolers across Canada. And that eventually became the Canadian Homeschooler, which really was started as a side hobby because I was running a different blog at the time for my family. And I decided to share whatever I found. And then over the years, things started to change. And I realized that I was doing a lot of sharing about different resources that were out there. And I really enjoyed it a lot. And the more that I learned and the more I uncovered as I was searching through Canadian options, and more companies were appearing on the scene. And I mean, over the last however long I've been doing this now, lots have appeared and lots of amazing companies have popped up. So I decided to make the Canadian Homeschooler be my primary job. So that's what I do full time now. I work running the Canadian Homeschooler. Started that in 2010. So 2024 is year 14, which is wild. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So I've been doing this job for quite a long time. And somewhere along the line, the Canadian Homeschooler went from just sharing Canadian resources to creating Canadian resources to creating a whole lot of other things. So it has grown and expanded, and it's pretty amazing to see the life cycle of a business expand. I now have the book that I've written called How to Homeschool in Canada. We also have just this 2024 in February was year 8 of the Canadian Online Homeschool Conference. And I've run a community, which I have changed over the years, and now it's on Facebook. And also, what else do we have? I don't even know anymore. I've got curriculum resources, lots of free printables, and all that kind of stuff. So the Canadian Homeschoolers expanded so much from just being a place to share Canadian resources to being a support system for Canadian homeschoolers, and sharing the resources is part of that. So it's a lot bigger than it used to be. Yeah, and then Elena, you came on the scene around 2020, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
it's hard to remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure.
Feels like a long time now. Yeah. So I think it was when I was writing my book, The How to Homeschool in Canada, I put out a word to the community that I had running on Facebook here. And I said, anybody want to beta read my crazy book that I'm trying to whip together to help people in this chaotic mess time? As the whole world was going, help! So I remember, and you volunteered right away. So I think you said that you'd been following the Canadian Homeschooler for a while by that point.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly when I found it. I think another homeschool mom locally said, hey, you should check out this website. And then I started following it. There was lots of great resources there. And I remember doing even the Canadian Homeschool Conference, like maybe when it first started, at the early years at least, but maybe even the first year. It's hard to remember looking back, but yeah, so I guess that's when I sort of started to get to know your business. And I think too, like I had asked you questions and different things. And so you kind of knew me a little bit, maybe at least my name, like,
yeah, I saw your name on Facebook all the time. You were stalking
probably.
me.
So then I remember thinking, oh, like it's summertime. You'd asked people to beta read, and I like reading. I like editing. I just thought, oh, it'd be a fun way to read a book. So I volunteered.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And obviously that led to other things, because after I finished publishing the book, I realized I had a lot of projects on my to-do list that I hadn't had time to finish. So I decided to take the leap and ask if I could have someone join my team. And since you'd worked with me and we seemed to click pretty well, and I think we still do, unless you're not telling me something, but
no.
I asked you to join the team. And so you've been part of that since then. And if anybody's been following along with our journey on Facebook or anywhere else, you may have noticed Elena popping in on our Facebook page and in the communities. And what else are you doing these days? You write blog posts and you help me stay on track, because I tend to wander away with my great idea list.
Yeah, or encourage each other to think of a billion ideas, and then we go, okay, which one are we going to do?
Yeah. So we thought for 2024 that we would really work on creating some new things for the Canadian homeschooler. And one of the pieces of that is obviously this podcast. So I know that we've talked a little bit about it. Do you want to kind of explain some of our ideas behind what this podcast would be?
Okay, I guess, I mean, we're starting with introducing it and kind of our idea behind it. I guess we really just wanted to, excuse me, encourage other people with it and share different things. Sorry about the slamming door in the background. Never get a quiet moment at my house. I thought it was quiet, but I guess everyone came home. That's okay. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I guess we're just hoping that it can be more like a conversation where people can be encouraged and learn and share kind of a little bit about homeschooling.
Right. So I was thinking, in my head, I have this vision of us being like this. You know how if you have homeschool friends, you all get together and you sit in the living room of somebody's house and you chat, and the conversation just kind of ebbs and flows based on the whatever topic that you're talking about, and an open conversation. And I'm hoping that that's kind of what we'll see in this podcast. Like, come on into the living room. We're just going to have a hangout chat. I think that our tagline is going to be something along the lines of homeschooling conversations from a Canadian perspective. So we may talk about things that other people in the homeschooling community talk about, but we're going to make sure that everything somehow is connected to our Canadian experience, whether that's we share really cool resources that we found with you, or we have a guest come in and chat with us, those kinds of things. So that's kind of what I'm hoping that we can see from this podcast, is an open conversation with the community and with each other. And if anybody out there has any great ideas of topics that they want us to cover or any questions that they have that they'd like us to answer, please make sure that you send us a message and let us know so that we can cover that topic as we're moving forward with our podcast. Because as great as it is for us to have our own ideas, I think that the most important thing is that we are answering the questions that you have in the community instead of us just chatting up our own thing. So anyways, thanks for joining me, Elena. I'm excited to be doing this podcast, and we'll see how it goes in the forward. And thanks for joining us.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Have a good day.
Thank you for joining us on this first episode of the Canadian Homeschooler Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the chance to get to know us a little bit better. In our next episode, please come for a walk along the homeschool journey with us from the beginning through to the end with our thoughts and tips for each stage along the way. If you have any feedback, ideas for topics, or people we should try to connect with for interviews, please let us know. And don't forget to share with your Canadian homeschooling friends. Thanks so much for joining in. Until next time, happy learning.